Well, good morning, everyone. I told you we'll have a full house early on in the morning. Did everyone have a good time last night? Oh. Yeah, it was quite wild. I mean, San Francisco wild, aka until 11 p.m. So, but we'll take what we get. But I think we succeeded in the rule that I had for this weekend, which is have fun. We had a lot of that yesterday, and today it's also about getting back into work mode. So I hope you're ready for this. We have a really exciting program ahead for you guys. So just to recap, yesterday it was all about paths to X. So basically different paths to progress across a variety of different scientific and technological disciplines. And today, it's all going to be about funding these paths and determining different funding and innovation mechanisms. So we're going to have a funding session now with a few talks that are coming from a fantastic selection of funders in this space that have really been supporting the entire ecosystem in really magnificent ways. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing afterwards, because afterwards we're going to have a ton of breakouts and deep dives, and you all get to, work with each other. All right, so without further ado, I guess, I'm really excited to welcome Cate to the stage. So Cate is running Astera Institute, and I think Astera is really one of my favorite new-ish organizations in the space compared to Foresight, I guess. But it's not only one of the biggest funders in areas that many people here care about, but it also has fantastic researchers such as Michael Nielsen, Steve Burns, etc., all affiliated with them. Cate also hosts a mean Sunday bagel brunch, which is amazing. Maybe you can get coax her into getting invited one of these days. But for now, please take it away. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll do your time over there. And you can use this clicker. Yep, and you can sit or stand as you prefer.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. My name is Cate Hall. I am CEO of Astera Institute, which is as Allison said, newish private foundation that is on a mission to steer science and technology toward an abundant future for all. Today, I'm going to be talking about what philanthropy can do that other types of funders can't. I think an alternate title for this would be things that confuse me, in part because I have been in this space for a pretty short period of time. I came on 6 months ago at Astera, and I was not doing funding work before that. So I'm coming in with sort of a fresh pair of eyes and looking at what other foundations and other funders are doing. And there are some things that I'm confused by. So I'm going to talk through those. Literally, some of these things will be things that lots of people have thought of, and I just have dumb ideas. And so I welcome being told that after the end of the talk. Okay, so figure out how to see this. Markets and governments, generally very good for scaling things that we want to create in the world. They're great engines for beneficial technology. However, they're not perfect. So markets are great when you have a way to make money off of something, obviously, and where the way that you can make money allows investors to underwrite the risks. So the return horizons are reasonable, and the types of risks that you face are clear or underwritable. Also, obviously, the preferred way of funding things when speed is a priority. Markets are not great when you want public goods, value that cannot be captured by people who are paying for it, where the path to commercialization is long or complicated, so not amenable to the timescales that many funders work on. Falls between funder risk-reward profiles. This is a big thing, where there are actually gaps in the market for funding emerging technology. Many people here probably know this, where, for instance, VC sort of co-evolved with software and is well suited for stuff that goes to the moon or fails pretty quickly. Project finance is suitable for things that have low risk and require returns on a long time scale, but they can't go to zero. Traditional banking just doesn't want to think about new types of risk. I feel like I'm going too slow here, so I'm going to speed up. Government, great when you need a whole lot of money, and it's not something that can be sort of privatized and siphoned off. Not great for a variety of reasons. I can't go back. I can, hello. When you need anything fast, government tends to not be great. Anything where you need flexibility, it's more challenging. And subject to political and partisan instability is, I think, an important one. I think that many people are reawakening to the fact that government is not a reliable funder of science, and that things that are priorities to one administration may not be priorities in the future. And that comes with less reliance, I think, on government funding. All right. So you find big funding gaps in some reliable places. One is where there's like a public good that you want to produce quickly, and that cannot be captured, as public goods cannot, in financial returns. Where projects are commercially viable, but they need help reaching acceptable risk return profiles. So like a good example of this is a number of technologies that we're talking about here that are really early in their ideation phase, where they may be things that make good investments for certain subsets of VCs at some point in the future, but they're not there yet. There needs to be like early research, and academia is not well suited for it for whatever reason. Or where market building is necessary to demonstrate viability. I think a lot of climate technology, which I'll talk a little bit more about, falls into this category. So philanthropic funding is actually very powerful, I think, and underrated. It can be a catalyst that complements these other sources of funding. It is able to act on market timescales or even faster. Real example, we got like an interesting, urgent, really good use of money grant application at 1 p.m. on Friday, 2 days ago. And the grantee had money in their bank account by like 5 p.m. So we're able to act very, very quickly when it's warranted. I think that is pretty unusual. That is sort of like downstream of the fact that we're able to take unreasonable risks, meaning things that are like not attractive to other types of people who are accountable to somebody ultimately. I think philanthropy gets a lot of flack for not being accountable to anybody, and that's fair, but it's also kind of its superpower. You're not accountable to LPs or election cycles or quarterly earnings, meaning that you can like take actual risks that other people can't afford to, which is very powerful. You can also lose money like governments. This is like how I think about grant making and many forms of funding is the ability to lose money over time, and you can do that faster or slower than governments. How am I doing on time?
You're at 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll go through examples very quickly. Some examples: vaccine technology, good for once you have the technology developed and you need to sort of stockpile drugs. Worse when you're developing the technology. This is what my last startup, Alvia, did. Government, we now have RFK. Despite recent pandemic, things are not looking great for development of new technology, new vaccine technology. SRM, this is a little bit finicky. SRM, no market for it, politically toxic. Some of that is warranted, but I think it's a good example of something that we need research on. Direct air capture is, again, not changing the slide. This is a good example of something where there are potential funders down the line, but there needs to be more work to establish a market. And philanthropy is able to provide first loss capital. It's able to essentially like eat losses to reduce risks for other investors so that other people can come in and take that up. Philanthropy can be catalytic. Great. Yes. So as I was saying, it can do more than just like be a substitute for these other forms of capital. It can help retire risks that other forms of capital are not willing to take, such that projects can then be handed off to other sources of funding, including markets and governments. This is like a toolkit that was developed in sustainable development finance, where you have concessionary capital that is willing to lose money, that can attract commercial capital, which is seeking market rate returns. This turns out to be a really powerful way of funding things that currently not a lot of philanthropists are taking advantage of. Yeah, okay. Additional degrees of freedom that are underexplored. I think philanthropists tend to think in terms of like market rate investments for growing their endowment and grant making when there's a whole capital stack that people can be using that includes like below market rate loans. It includes credit enhancements where you just have balance sheet assets. There's a lot of degrees of freedom that currently philanthropists aren't really taking advantage of. It would be beneficial, I think. Okay, just 1 second. It would be great if we could reduce dependence on grants to some extent, because you want the price discovery and discipline that you can get from market funding mechanisms to the greatest extent possible with the thing that you're trying to do philanthropically. It also gives philanthropies the opportunity to recycle money and redeploy it for additional philanthropic projects. Why aren't foundations doing more of this? This is the big thing that I would love people's opinions on. My own take is that there's like a set of legal and compliance issues that are mostly not real issues that get deployed as sort of like excuses for not doing this. The risks seem to be pretty minimal. I'm a lawyer also by training, so I have some hot takes on this. I do think there's a public perception that grants are like a more pure form of philanthropic funding and therefore to be favored over loans or equity investments or other things, when I think that's actually really an inefficient use of capital in many cases. And then last but not least, there's challenges in education. People don't know how to learn how to deploy these alternative types of investments. That requires bandwidth and education. That's a place where we can improve, I think. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. We have time for one question. Okay, Bobby. Also, there's still a few seats here if you guys want to come in the front.
How do you think about things like advanced market commitments? Because that was part of the Operation Warp Speed, for example.
Yeah, great question. So I didn't cover like pull mechanisms at all here, just push mechanisms where we're giving people money up front. I think there's probably a lot of room for interesting development of pull mechanisms like advanced market commitments. That is one thing that you're basically seeing in the climate space, where Stripe Climate is providing demand offtakes that help support the development of nascent technologies by establishing that there will be demand for their product for direct air capture once they build it. I suspect that this could be usefully deployed in other areas of emerging technology as well, alongside other types of pull funding mechanisms like prizes and bounties. But this is something that we've explored less so far than push mechanisms.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cate. Wonderful. Thanks.